This is a pretty urgent story, folks, a fairly urgent story. Aaron Mate was informed, apparently, on stage at a speaking engagement in Toronto of news that electronic intifada journalist Ali Abunimah was arrested and detained in Switzerland, of all places. Very un-Swiss of Switzerland, I must say.
Just reading about it now, for those who don't know Ali, he's the co-founder of the Electronic Intifada, a vital site for information about Palestine. It's been around for a very long time, and I'm among many people who would be so ill-informed without Electronic Intifada. So I'm very upset to hear that Ali's been detained. I'm not surprised though, because Ali's been at the forefront of calling out the complicity of European states in the genocide in Gaza. And so the fact that he's being arrested now in Zurich is not surprising. Also following so many other crackdowns in Europe. Like, what is it about Europe deciding to carry on the Nazi tradition in the service of today's Nazis? So I'm reminded of that doctor from Gaza. I'm sorry his name escapes me, but the very well-known one who went recently to try to, yes, who was arrested, or was prevented from entering the country to deliver lectures that he was invited to. I mean, this is the face of Europe right now. It's so abhorrent. And so, free Ali Abunimah.
Ali Abunimah sounds better. I've heard it pronounced both ways, but I'm going to go Abunimah because that sounds a lot better.
It's not really that surprising. The Swiss have always had a weakness for Nazi gold.
That's true. That's true. And by the way, the surgeon that he mentions there, the Palestinian surgeon I'm referring to, is denied entry to Germany, is Dr. Ghassan Abu Sittah. But here it is, press release from the Electronic Intifada. EI's Ali Abunimah arrested in Switzerland. The Electronic Intifada's executive director, Ali Abunimah, was arrested by Swiss police ahead of a speaking event in Zurich on Saturday afternoon. He is currently being detained and has had access to legal counsel. The arrest came one day after Abunimah arrived in Zurich for a speaking tour. When he arrived at Zurich airport on Friday, Abunimah was questioned by police for an hour before being allowed to enter the country. Abunimah's arrest appears to be part of a growing backlash from the Western governments against expressions of solidarity with the Palestinian people. Last year, several activists and journalists in Britain were arrested, raided, or charged using counter-terror powers. These include Asa Winstanley, an associate editor with the Electronic Intifada, whose home was raided and his computers and phones seized. Winstanley has not been charged with any crime. The Electronic Intifada team stands in solidarity with Ali Abunimah. Speaking out against injustice in Palestine is not a crime. Journalism is not a crime. Mick Wallace says arresting Ali Abunimah is one more example of Western powers' drift to authoritarianism. Switzerland used to describe itself as a neutral state, but it too now has sold out to U.S. empire. Follow the money. Kit Clarenberg, absolutely shocking. Authorities in Switzerland have arrested my friend and editor Ali Abunimah ahead of a scheduled event. He remains detained on uncertain grounds. The age of tyranny is well upon us in the West. We must fight back. Remember, there's more of us than them. This, of course, is not the first time he has faced legal trouble from the liberal free states of Europe. EI's Ali Abunimah is being threatened by German authorities with prison and fines for giving this talk about why Germany is participating in Israel's genocide in Gaza. So this was back in July. We're going to play a minute of this where he explains the predicament he found himself in.
Earlier today, I received a notice from the German authorities informing me that I'm prohibited from speaking to you today and threatening me with criminal penalties, including fines and up to 1 year in prison if I defy this order. Here it is. It's actually 15 pages long. Obviously, since I'm in the United States, I'm beyond the jurisdiction of the Berlin regime. I assume that they could still open a criminal proceeding against me in Germany and try to harass me in that manner. But whether I were physically in Germany or not, my response would be exactly the same. I do not take orders from a regime that is an accomplice in genocide.
There you go. Now, what he says there, he's based in the United States. Ali was born in the United States. He was born in Washington, D.C. He was educated in the United States, I believe Princeton and the University of Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. He is an American. He's an American being detained in fucking Switzerland, of all places. We're going to take this shit from fucking Switzerland. So I have to ask, we'd be asking this question, where's the government when Joe Biden was president? So where's Mr. Free Speech Donald Trump there, who said he was going to restore free speech? That was part of his inaugural address. That's been a major point of emphasis during this transition. Are we going to let Switzerland? He's very, very willing to play hardball with Panama and Greenland and Colombia now with tariffs because they sent back some migrants. All right. Well, how about turning the screws on Switzerland to give us our journalists back? Because clearly, this is a pattern in Europe. As their press release mentioned, UK police raid home, seize devices of Asa Winstanley, charged with no crime. They just rousted him. Of course, Richard Medhurst, can't make this up, journalist arrested under UK anti-terror law hours after criticizing it. Medhurst in our space, a podcaster, a YouTuber, a Rumble creator, being brought up on terror charges for literally expressing an opinion, nothing else. Reporter Sarah Wilkinson arrested by UK government for opposition to Gaza genocide. That's an article from the World Socialist website. I'm going to have to insist that you all read that. That you read that. Yes.
All of their articles.
Yes, all that and all of them, but that one first.
All of them from the first publication.
Exactly. Yes, in order, starting with that one and then going back to the first one. Acclaimed journalist charged with anti-Semitism. So this is Mary Kostakidis in Australia. For years, the face of television news in Australia as an anchor of the SBS nightly broadcast has been accused of supporting ethnic cleansing of Jews for 2 retweets about Israel's war on Gaza, reports Joe Loria from Consortium News. She posted a speech from a Hezbollah leader. As a journalist, that is a responsibility of yours if you're covering these topics to actually list and cite primary sources. And for that, she has been harassed by the Australian courts.
Is she charged?
I don't believe she's been charged yet.
Yeah, that would surprise me because Australia wouldn't let in those IDF soldiers recently on suspicion of war crimes.
Right. Yeah. She has not been charged yet, but they are, as the article mentions, giving her a hard time. And these cases were sourced. I mean, I had known about a few of them, but sourced from this wonderful Caitlin Johnston article. The always great Caitlin Johnston had a piece about this. Another journalist arrested in another Western nation for wrong think about Israel. So obviously, I encourage you, as we always do, to check that out. But yeah, this is really, really scary. There is no place to run for free speech, apparently, right? I mean, we always thought, hey, look, once America goes fascist, you got Europe. I guess I'm a European citizen. Right. I always thought, well, if it gets real bad, I'll move to France. No, can't move to the EU
Canada.
now. Yeah, no. Canada, no. There is no safe haven for free speech. There really is not. It is getting really, really terrifying. The guy lands in Switzerland. Again, Switzerland, which prides itself on its neutrality. He lands in Switzerland and they detain him and arrest him. Like I said, this has happened to his peer in the past. It's happened to him in the past, Germany. But yeah, this is really nightmarish. It is really a dystopian thing. And there seems to be no safe refuge from the anti-speech police.
Part of the irony of this, and this is something that a lot of us with a less crazed critique of a lot of cancel culture were warning about, they built the precedents and the infrastructure for cracking down on speech in the course of cracking down on pronouns. Now they're using that same apparatus and those same pronouns, for example, they're using those same tactics against people who are pro-Palestine. They already crossed that line. This is what I've been saying from the beginning. A lot of things that the left or liberal left embraced have really turned against them very quickly. They already established precedents for wrongthink, for wrong speech, for facing professional academic consequences. In countries like the UK, we did a few stories about this, where they arrested an autistic woman for calling a cop a lesbian, and they're dragging her out of the house, and they're trying to explain she's autistic, her grandmother's a lesbian, she didn't mean anything by it. Well, now you've set up all of the infrastructure you need to persecute people for thought crime, to persecute people for speech crime. In the United States, it's more difficult to execute this in this way. But the reason school's back in session and you're not seeing these continued protests is because they have pretty effectively on a lot of the campuses, including Harvard, including NYU, really made it a threat to your continued matriculation to say anything about Zionism. They just, with Harvard, they just settled these lawsuits where now they adopted this crazed standard. I forget the name of the organization that pushes this standard, has tried to pass it through Congress in the United States. They did pass it, I think, in the House, and it didn't go through the Senate. That essentially makes calling someone a Zionist a hate crime.
Right.
They did that at NYU also. I'm right across from City College. They still have a fence around it to keep people out. You still have to show ID. You can't just walk across that campus like you used to. They effectively shut down the whole student movement. This is an extension of it. It is just, this was the first real rebellion against this regime that they've seen, against the liberal world order. And this is how they responded. And the thing is, nobody's coming to save you, because Trump and his people, they're all on board with this. They're all on board with it.
Yep. And we know Biden was.
Look what happened with TikTok.
Now look what happened
now
with
you
TikTok.
can't you can't say free Palestine on there now.
That's right. So this is, for anybody who has to hear this, and none of our regulars have to hear this. You all know this, but we probably got some new viewers coming in here tonight, and these streams make their way out to new people all the time. You cannot be pro-Israel and pro-free speech. You cannot.
Nope.
You cannot. You cannot be indifferent on Israel and be pro-free speech.
You can't. It very quickly becomes absolutely ridiculous.
Yep.
If you will not take on Israel for whatever reason you claim that is, if you will not address that, you look like a clown when you talk about speech. You look like a clown when you talk about corruption. You look like a clown when you talk about the military-industrial complex.
Right, or the
because
defense budget,
Israel touches on all of those subjects. You cannot be screaming about John Brennan. If you will not talk about Israel, you look fucking ridiculous. You look ridiculous. You make yourself absolutely useless as a journalist, as a commentator, if you're afraid of this subject. You lose all credibility.
Yep. I agree. And last but certainly not least, there is a change.org petition, for whatever those are worth, to free Ali. I pinned that to the top of our Twitter feed, so you can find that by going to x.com/do-dissidence. That is the pinned tweet atop our feed when you get to our profile. So please sign that and share that. All right, that's x.com/do-dissidence. I don't know what those things do, but if they didn't do anything, I guess people wouldn't sign them. I mean, change.org's been around for a while, so must be good for something. At the very least, a show of solidarity with Ali. I'm sure he would be moved by that. So let's all make that happen.
Please clap.